Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on what time you are watching this podcast. This podcast series we call Race, Culture, and the Church. Race, Culture, and the Church. This series we started about a week after the murder of George Floyd. And we've, believe we're over 50 episodes now. So we have accumulated a degree of resource information and had the privilege of having various guests come into this space. And I invite you to go back and look at the folks that we have had come into this space and definitely subscribe to our podcast series and share this with others. I am absolutely pleased to have seems like this has been the last few podcast series we've had a lot of SMUD employees here, and I am pleased about that. And now I am pleased to have Ms. Courtney Beal, a senior DEIB analyst with SMUD. Welcome, Courtney.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure to be here with you, Pastor Meeks.
I hope you say that at the end, too. You know, it was your pleasure to be here, or it's like, no, I'm ready to run out of here. No. So we're happy to have you here. DEIB, that seems to be the flavor of the week. We'll get into that in a minute. You know, really, what does that mean lived out? But give me a little background on Courtney. I understand that Sacramento is not your place of birth.
Right. Right. And I just want to go back just a little bit, because as I hear you state the name of the podcast, Race, Culture, and the Church, if I had to describe my values, I would say those exact sentiments. However, the church would always be first for me.
So we should be ordering Church, Race, Culture podcast series.
That would be how that would be how I write it out. But that is the epitome of who I am and what's important to me. And to answer your question, no, not a California native, born and raised in McComb, Mississippi, small town, about 45 minutes from Jackson, or maybe an hour and a half from New Orleans. Okay. If you're going to Mississippi, you probably have to fly into New Orleans and just drive over.
Okay.
That's pretty much how that works. But yes.
You left McComb for the green grass of California, or what was the reason for coming here?
So born and raised by my grandmother, my maternal mother.
Okay.
She decided when I was in 11th grade to relocate the family. I opposed, because I was in my senior year of high school. That's literally all I knew. I went to school with these same people from kindergarten through 12th grade, and so I just did not want to change. And I stayed there for about a year with my uncle. And if I can be honest, my uncle did some things that were not according to the law to take care of us. Mm. And because I had been raised in that environment, during that time, I also became a young mom. Mm. I became a teenage mom. And I was very adamant that I absolutely would not raise my daughter in that type of environment with those type of activities taking place. Mm. And so here I am. So I came to California to give her a fresh start. I was accustomed to that way of life, but I refused to bring up my child in that way.
Any regrets?
No regrets.
So Mississippi, you weep for me. I was born in Bakersfield, so that's probably the closest thing to Mississippi in California there is. And I thank God my parents moved from Bakersfield. I thank God for that. But I also have a fondness, I think the word's hagiography, where you start to read things into history that really weren't there. And so I have this halo of Bakersfield, mm-hmm. and how wonderful it was and all of that. Do you have a clear-eyed view of what McComb was like and is like even today?
Very clear. It was very clear that there were boundaries, and we were raised that way. So I grew up in a sense of there's black and there's white. You are allowed in this space and you're not allowed in that space. And we knew clearly there was a clear line of delineation. And I was accustomed to that because that's all I had been exposed to. And so that's all I had ever seen. And so that was fine for me because, you kind of take on the mentality of your environment sometimes. Mm-hmm. And so when I actually moved to California, it was such a huge culture shock that I left. I just couldn't take it. It was too overwhelming. There was a multitude of people and races and ethnicities and so much diversity that it was scary in a sense.
Did you come from McComb to Sacramento?
Yes.
Okay. Interesting. So it was sensory overload that
Yes.
you experienced and went running for the hills, so to speak.
Yes.
But you came back.
I came back.
Um, have you been back to McComb
Yes.
since? And how many years has it been now since you've left?
About 25.
Okay, so in those 25 years, what have you seen change?
So when I go back to McComb, it's more of a sense of nostalgia because I'm just there for a temporary amount of time. So I'm not going from an angle to kind of decipher, the progress. I still have relatives that live there, and I know that racism is extremely still prevalent in the workspace and in the career space and the home buying space and all of the spaces where supremacy exists. It's still there. But when I return, I'm going specifically for that space of sitting on the front porch and waving at the neighbors, where there's just the trees and there's just a much slower pace of life. So I have a strong affinity to that nostalgic feeling that I get when I go home, right? There's no place like home.
Yeah, that's what Dorothy said.
Yeah.
So sitting on the porch with and we have a podcast series called The Front Porch. So I can paint this picture sitting on the front porch with a peach tea under a magnolia tree, and about 100% humidity.
Absolutely.
And mosquitoes and
Mosquitoes.
I like California. I like California. So what if you could kind of just bottle up, if you were selling bottled water or perfume or whatever, what is the aroma of McComb, and compare and contrast that to the aroma or the perfume that Sacramento is selling?
All the things that you just described, the sitting on the front porch, in the rocking chair with sun tea or peach tea, the mosquitoes, the crickets that you hear in the distance, the trees still blowing, the vast greenery. You see the wild rabbits running across the yard. You don't have a neighbor that you can immediately reach out and touch. There's still the riding lawnmowers and the straw hat that you see, people needing to use to cut their grass. And it's really that camaraderie of, I don't have to know you by name, which we used to, but you look like me, and so I feel comfortable with you. And that appeals to me very strongly. Versus California, it's I don't know you and I don't make an attempt to know you. If I see you, I can very easily walk back past without acknowledging you. There's not that slow down pace to really get time to build relationships. And for me, I've grown accustomed to that in this space. However, my heart strongly yearns to go back home. And so when I retire, that's absolutely my goal.
So, well, that'll be sometime in the future. We won't worry about that, right? Your retirement. Relationships. Give me beyond a dictionary definition of community. I've asked others that have come into this space, paint me a picture that I can see, that I can envision. What is community to Courtney Beal?
Community is this space where I feel welcomed, and I'm also welcoming others in. And so it's this space where I can go without apprehension and be not only my authentic self, but others have the ability to be their authentic selves as well. And it's a place where I have a sense of safety. That's what community looks like for me. It's a place of belonging, and it's a sense of safety, knowing that I'm amongst like-minded, individuals. So whether that be a community of people that look like me in ethnicity or gender, or whether that be a community of people that have the same faith that I have, or we are like-minded in some way, but there's a sense of kinsmanship there, is how I liken myself to a community in any setting that I'm in.
So that I'm assuming there's a I'm hoping there's a wonderful nexus with what you do as a senior analyst, DEIB, diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging analyst with SMUD. I guess before I even go down that rabbit hole or rabbit trail, what is DEIB? I know what I just said, but what is that? What does that look like, or what is that lived out at SMUD? Each organization that has a DEI component defines it however they define it
Sure.
within the typically within the culture of the and the context of the organization. How does Courtney define it, and how does SMUD define it if
Sure.
they're different?
So my hope is that they're always going to be a
Okay.
direct correlation, and I do see correlations being made. So just to break down the acronym, DEIB is diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And SMUD's had several iterations of that over the course of my 20-year career. In 2011, we started with a diversity and inclusion office. On the heels of the murder of George Floyd in 2020, we added in the equity piece. And within this last year or two, we've also added into belonging. And so what that means for me is that there's not one dominant ethnicity, there's not one dominant gender. And if we look at the history of SMUD over the last 70 years, there was a dominant culture and there was a dominant gender. When you're working in a space of linemen, you know, that you're doing this physical labor that's outside, you know, climbing poles or, you know, all of these things, there was a predominantly male gender. That ethnicity was white, and as well as that gender. And in the office, you saw more of the switchboard operators, you know, the call center, and that's where the females resided, right? And so now we're looking like where we are now and where we're continuing to go is that you don't have to have a label to be in any one of those spaces. You have not only the right, but you have the opportunity. And the space is purposely created to allow for me to be a line woman if I choose, down to the fact that we've now changed the job descriptions from line man to line person, line woman or man. So you could be in whatever space you're in and you're not pigeonholed into where they feel that was best for you to come in the door. And so that's, you know, where we are, and that's where we're continuing to go. And that work is taking place across a lot of our job descriptions, a lot of the pipelines from work, you know, from the community to the workforce opportunities that we're creating. We're intentionally creating spaces to be more inclusive. We're identifying places where they lack equity. It's not just about equality, right? We can give everybody the same thing, but it doesn't mean that they started from the same place and they won't be able to utilize that resource to the fullest extent that they may need it. And so that's where we've brought in equity into place, is to make these more customized spaces to meet the needs of people, you know, that are starting from different points.
So is it solely, I'm assuming it's not, but I'll let you answer that. Is it solely DEIB? Is it a individual thing, or is it a corporate thing? Is it a community thing? What if the picture that you just painted, I'm getting it's a me. It's a my thing. But I'm guessing it extends beyond that.
So it's all of the things. It's all of the things that you just said. As an organization, SMUD's committed to it as a corporation, but it's also very individual. You know, we are there as individuals. We have to show up in that space being truly who we are, and we represent the community that we serve. And so in order for us to achieve full buy-in from people, we have to make it personal. We can't just make it a mission or a vision statement. It has to mean something to me as an individual. I need to be able to make the mental connection, and it needs to matter in my heart in order for us to be fully committed. And it's mattered to me in my heart before it even became a thing, because that's the culture in which I grew up. I said earlier how in Mississippi, it was very clear: you're white or you're black, you are have or you are a have not. The women before me, I come from a lineage of civil rights work movement leaders in that space. And so, sure, I knew that was the rule, but we've always kind of been good troublemakers in my family. And so I have, you know, continued to live out that legacy that my great grandmother, you know, started so many moons ago before me.
See, you're opening up another box, or open another path. But I love that John Lewis, good trouble.
Hmm.
Yeah, just good trouble. So, what good trouble? Let me just ask this: how has implementing and living out the tenets, the goals of DEIB for your organization, for Courtney specifically,
Sure.
for your, how has that been received within SMUD?
So I had to move in the background to be very transparent. When I first started in SMUD in 2003, there was not a dedicated space for DEIB. And so I was there to do transactional work, but I also needed to do what was important to me. So I've always done twofold work. I've done my job and performed it in excellence, but I've also been connected to that community piece in some type of way however I could, whether that was volunteering through like our SMUD Cares programs, when we go out into the community at MLK Day marches, when we volunteer at Habitat for Humanity, or, all of the things. SMUD was very good at still creating that space, even though those were not jobs that I was paid to do. As a SMUD employee, I was able to volunteer to share this information about EPR. I remember strongly at my first church home when I came to Sacramento, I would get in front of the church and educate the church on EPR and shade trees. My pastor allowed it. That wasn't even my job at SMUD, but I knew that there was a need in this community. I knew that we lacked the resources and we lacked the understanding. And so I was always willing to put myself in a position as that I have this seat at the table and I don't want to sit at this table alone. So I'm going to make sure to share this information with as many as I can to get, them the access to get to this table if they so choose as well.
You threw out an acronym there, EPR. What does that stand for?
That's our energy assistance program rate. So if for those that qualify under a certain income threshold, you are eligible to receive a discount on your monthly bill. And I was the recipient of that even while working at SMUD. I was a recipient of that. I was a single mom of 3 when I joined SMUD. And although I had that good job, as we call it in our culture, in our community, I was barely making ends meet. And so, because I knew that I needed that, I knew that some other people needed that. And again, I'm always one to share the information to help anybody else achieve what they need to get the support and resources that they need as well.
Well, let me ask: I I thought I knew Courtney Beal. I really know Courtney Beal now. I like you even more if that's possible. Are you a unicorn within SMUD, or are there other Courtney Beals there?
I'm proud to say that there are other Courtney Beals there. I have one that's sitting to the left of me now, one of my dearest friends, Miss AJ Woods. But it took us a while to get there. It took a while for our recruitment processes to look different, to create space for those that may not always meet what the defined minimum qualifications are. But if you give the opportunity, you will see that they will come and they will show up and they will show out, as we say. And so there is a lot more of us there now than there was back then. And I also will say, for those of us that were there back then, we now have the courage and support to speak up and say the things that are needed, that are still missing, and continue to create these spaces.
We've had the privilege of having a couple of ward members here in this space, and they were very kind, gave great answers, I think. So does what you're saying trickle up to the seats, to the decision makers, to the point of we're not just saying this, we're buying into this, and we're doing this, whatever this is, in terms of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging?
Pastor Meeks, I'm proud to say that it's not just trickling up, but it is trickling down. So I want to give credit to our previous CEO, which was Arlen Orchard, who was at the helm of SMUD when after the murder of George Floyd, and that's when we really saw the game change. And our current CEO, Paul Lau, really believes in the value of this work, and they are also able to have these unifying experiences where they have they're not just being told that this particular opportunity is missing, but this is a part of their lived experience as well. And I do believe that that lived experience makes a huge difference in the direction that we have gone as an organization. So it's working in both ways.
Paint me a picture of where you see or would like to see SMUD go in the next 5 years, 10 years. Where's SMUD going from Courtney Beal's window?
Where I would like to see us go as an organization is into a space that is custom created to meet the needs of the masses.
What is that?
That means that everybody is not coming to this table with the same education. We're not coming with the same professional experience. We're not coming with the same privilege, if you will. And so that we begin to create intentional spaces for those that don't look like the status quo, that have not had what the status quo has, for those that still need additional helping hands. I'm working, if you will, to help us to continue to identify the spaces that are not just highly visible, and create that opportunity for others to come in and get the access and resources that we have.
So that's the who. That's the who. If I can trying to think speak as I think, where's the where? Where, got the who,
Sure.
but where are we going? What does if I'm a single mom in Oak Park, and I asked this of one of the ward members that came in here, and I can't recall the answer, so any answer is a good answer, I guess. If I'm a single mom, what does all this DEIB at SMUD mean to me if I can barely pay my utility bill? This sounds wonderful and all.
Yeah.
Gosh, I'm getting squeezed from rent.
Yeah.
I'm having to work and hustle for 2 jobs, trying to find affordable daycare and DEIB. So what?
Yeah. So that means opportunities and resources. And SMUD does excel in that space. So that means it's not just about me telling you how to get a discount on as a SMUD employee. If I'm the customer service rep and you're speaking to me as a single mom, it's not just about me meeting my QA requirements that I know that the person is listening to me to hit all of these marks, right? It's not just about me making sure that SMUD's needs are met, meaning you need to pay your bill. But I need to also be empowered as an employee to educate you on some other opportunities that are available to you, whether that be through anything from WIC to City Church, having programs that they offer, and STEM education, summer school, for a week.
So you actually have a resource list
Yes.
that you push out or offer to folks that come into your path?
Yes, so we have a resource list that we provide to that we're able to share with our customers. Our employees are also able to go and participate in community fairs and get to know, the community members, get to know other things about what they need. So we're able to connect the dots, not just making it about what you need from SMUD, but connecting you with other resources or other job fairs. We're out, at Cal Expo for Giving Day to donate toys, at this time of year. So giving employees an opportunity to share with the community in every way to help them achieve everything and meet any resource need that they have. We can give you the education on that, or at least point you in the direction of the community partners that are offering the services that you may need.
Okay, so I'm gonna push you one more time, try and extend this. The chairman of SMUD his name is?
Our CEO is Paul Lau.
Lau.
Yes.
Okay, he just stepped down, and Courtney Beal is now the CEO.
Okay, all right now. I like where it's going.
I'm just saying. So what are Courtney's top 3 things she's gonna do in the next 100 days?
I'm definitely going to take a very deep dive into our recruitment, right? Not just our external recruitment, but our internal recruitment. You have Courtney Beals of the organization that have been there for 20 years that may not have been able to make the progress that they wanted to make. And so I'm going to spend some time in that space identifying those barriers.
How do I do that? That sounds lofty. How do I do that? How does Courtney? Now you're the CEO. How are you going to do that? You've got a utility to run, and you're going to sit down with another Courtney Beal and listen to her story.
Absolutely, because for me, relationships are the key. And if I don't have the time as the CEO to have those conversations with the people that are supporting SMUD's mission and vision, then I'm going to not have the buy-in that we need to continue to take this further. And if we don't identify and meet the needs of our front line on up, then we're going to continue to have a very high attrition rate. We're not going to be able to get the buy-in that we need for employees to get on board to take us where we need to go. So whether that be through focus groups or lunch or whatever that may be, that conversation is going to be critical. That conversation that we had after the murder of George Floyd is how I 100% believe how we got to where we are now.
When you had those conversations after the murder of George Floyd at SMUD, what did that look like? I wasn't there, so you tell me, what did that look like at SMUD?
I was there. I was on the front line, and I was speaking up wholeheartedly. I was there to say, this is what our community is going through right now, and you have not sent out one single article in support of what employees are experiencing right now. And even though we were at home because we were, in the initial throes of COVID, we still had needs. I was there to say, as an employee, I'm so thankful that I'm not coming into this workspace every day with you, because I can't deal with the facade that's going to be required for me to show up as a professional and assimilate to where my tears don't cause you discomfort. The fact that the very first communication you did send out was a picture of boarded up windows that said, we're ready and we're prepared in the case of civil unrest, I'm able to educate you on the face and then let you know that that's perpetuating a stereotype. And we're not standing for that. And so here's where you are lacking opportunities. Why I never shared them before is because you never created a space. I'm here to let you know that my husband, as a Black man who also works for SMUD, has to go into these customers' yard that have their Confederate flags flying, and they're, saying, no, you can't come here, and they're pulling out guns. So now that you've opened the door and we're having this conversation, then let's keep it real. And I'm gonna tell you all of the things that we have experienced as a culture, that it's not just Central Park Karen that's causing discomfort, that this is what we are experiencing as long-term SMUD employees, and you can do something about it. And they listened.
And the result is, I'm here speaking to Courtney Beal, Senior DEIB Analyst with SMUD, game changer, soon to be CEO of SMUD.
Speak those things that be not.
I'm just saying, Courtney, Ms. Beal, thank you so very much for entering into this space. You have to come back. I think I finally got to Courtney, and so keep fighting the good fight.
Yes.
Wherever you're at, wherever your path leads. And thank you for entering into this space with us.
It's my pleasure, Pastor Meeks. Anytime. I'm truly honored to sit here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.